on them so that they don't make mistakes and they become great companies that reach the market and reach patients with as much value as possible. So let me start off by just giving you a couple ground rules for today. So those of you who are here in the Zoom, I'd love to have you guys ask questions as we go. Please use the Q&A button for that. So you just click the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Queue up your questions while I'm talking is fine. And I'll look over at the Q&A box constantly. If I see something that makes sense for me to stop and address, I'll do that. Otherwise, I'll save them for later on in the discussion. There's also a chat button, but I'd prefer you use the Q&A. For those of you who are watching this on a recording, you can email me later at paul@medtechinnovator.org, or you can email APAC support at medtechinnovator.org. Either one would be fine. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about MedTech Innovator and what this is all about. So as I mentioned before, MedTech Innovator is an accelerator, or maybe I didn't get into that in full detail yet, but MedTech Innovator is an accelerator. And what we're focused on, as I said, is finding transformative companies. This is a webinar focused on MedTech Innovator Asia Pacific. It's the third time we're running an accelerator in Asia Pacific. So we'll tell you a little more about that program. In the corner, you can just see at MedTech Awards. That's where you can find me on Twitter, and on LinkedIn, you can look for just MedTech Innovator or hashtag MedTech Innovator. So as I mentioned, we're an accelerator. We also run a global competition. We are the largest accelerator in the world for medical technology, specifically devices, diagnostics, digital health, and biotools companies. And our mission is to improve human health. And we do that by accelerating companies like you. That's how we do this. So you'll be hearing a lot about how this functions. What you see there in the picture next to me is the graduating class. Back in 2019, the reason I'm showing that picture was the last time we were on a physical stage. So it's nice to see what that looks like. That was in Singapore, where we had the first graduating class of MedTech Innovator. So telling you a little more about MedTech Innovator. Now, this is globally. MedTech Innovator, as I said, we've been doing this for 9 years, which means 2022 will be our 10th year in operation. Just to give a little more sense, as I said before, the largest accelerator in the world. We have 420 companies who've been through our programs and come out the other side. And amazingly, after 9 years, 95% of those companies are still in business or have been acquired. They've got 90 products on the market. They've gone on to raise $3.5 billion in follow-on equity funding, which is just a huge amount of money, as I think you can probably appreciate. And again, this is across all of our companies, and this is after MedTech Innovator. This year alone, 94 of our companies had a funding event. I mean, just unbelievable numbers of companies in MedTech Innovator that are getting funded every year. Additionally, it was $1.5 billion that our companies raised this year alone. Now, as I said, going back 9 years, it's $3.5 billion in total, $1.5 billion in 2021 alone. I mean, 2021 has been an amazing year for being a MedTech company and specifically being a MedTech Innovator company. Lastly, I'll mention that globally, we had 1,800 companies apply to MedTech Innovator, and we chose 85 companies for our various cohorts. That's a lot of companies applying. It's very competitive, but it is worth applying. And I'll tell you why as we go into this. 21 of our companies have been acquired since we started this. And again, there's multiple programs. So I'm just going to quickly address this. We have MedTech Innovator, our flagship classic program, which is focused on the US market. That means companies, doesn't matter where you're based, but if you're interested in the US market as your primary market, you should apply to the MedTech Innovator program. If you're interested in biotools, meaning life science tools, single cell therapies, sequencing, omics technologies, and so on, you should apply to BioTools Innovator. We have a website at biotoolsinnovator.org for you. Or MedTech Innovator Asia Pacific, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. And that's focused on companies that want to enter the Asia Pacific region as their primary market. Doesn't matter who you are. The deadline is January 31st to apply to the program. Excuse me, it should be 2022, January 31st, 2022. And the URL is www.medtechinnovator.org. If you go to that website, you'll see our homepage, which will let you apply to any three of those programs. Or if you're applying to MedTech Innovator Asia, you can just go directly to medtechinnovator.asia. So I mentioned before that this is an industry program. And what we mean by that is we're kind of like a light corporate accelerator. We work in partnership with the companies you see here on the screen. They are a huge part of the program. If you're lucky enough to be in the program and be selected, you will be directly mentored by one of the companies you see here on the screen. And these won't just be anyone in the company. These are senior leadership in these companies taking the time to meet with you, in most cases every other week, to make sure that you're achieving your milestones and that you're getting your questions answered. So we work directly with these companies, and you will as well. They're the ones who are also making the decisions about which companies advance in our process, which I will tell you more about shortly. Now, one of the things that I mentioned in my very first intro was that I hate seeing good companies fail for the wrong reason. And they fail all the time. It's a very common thing that healthcare companies will get out there, will raise some seed funding and start working, and then for whatever reason they won't go to that next round. That's what we commonly see. You can't get from your seed to your Series A, or you can't get from your pre-seed to your seed, or your Series A to your Series B, for a number of reasons. And we've summed some of them up here on the slide. This is an article that I wrote a couple years ago. If you just Google 10 reasons why healthcare startups fail, you will find this article. I encourage you to go take a look at it. There's lots of reasons why people fail for the wrong reason. The number 10 one on this list is the one I'm going to point out right now, which is staying in your echo chamber, excuse me. And what I mean by that is that you're stuck in your local ecosystem with, maybe great supporters who really like you and who often don't have the experience to help you bring a product to the market, or they don't want to tell you the truth in many cases. You'll pitch and you'll finish your presentation and they all clap and go, "Great job." But they don't tell you all the things that they say to themselves once you walk out the door. And they say, "Oh my God, this will never make it, and here's why," and all. But they don't want to tell you the truth because you're their friend, you're in the ecosystem, maybe you're there at the same university or wherever it might be. We're going to tell you the truth. We're going to tell you that you have the wrong CEO. We're going to tell you that that maybe your business model is wrong, or that the indication you've chosen is wrong, and you want to flip that into something else that'll be higher value. We're going to tell you what you need to hear. So that's really important. And again, I encourage you to look for that article. Now, a little more about MedTech Innovator and what you can expect coming up in the 2022 program. To begin with, last year, we had over 500 companies apply to our Asia Pacific program. I expect that we'll exceed that this year. So just know that it's reasonably competitive. Approximately 4 to 5% of the companies applying will actually make it to the actual accelerator. We'll invite about 60 or so companies to pitch, depending on our sponsor interest. So we may invite more. It just depends, again, on what our sponsors ask. So what happens basically is we have an online review process. Our partners, companies like Johnson & Johnson and Olympus and Nipro and so on, will say to us, "I like that company. I want to see them pitch." And we will invite them to pitch in one of our events. So as I said, it may be more than 60. And then we will select companies for the Accelerator program. That will be 20 companies this year. We'll also have finalists who will make it to our competitions at the end, but all of the companies in our program will be accelerated. All of them will make it all the way to the very end. The only difference is that at the end, we have a competition that we call our finals, and that includes the grand prizes. This year, the total for all the prizes will be well over $200,000. I think will be close to $300,000. The first prize is $175,000, and there's a series of other cash prizes, and then some additional prizes like incubator space as well. So we'll talk more about that, but just know that the first prize will be US $175,000. In terms of the overall schedule, here we are right now, December 2021. You have time to apply between now and the end of January, but I would urge you not to wait until the end of January. We are going to be choosing companies to advance to our road tour, and we start doing that in January. Our reviewers start reviewing this month. So if you have a company and you're interested in this program, I suggest you register, start your application. I'm going to show you how the application works shortly, but I encourage you to go in and actually start that. You can apply, fill out your whole application now, and you can come back at any time and update the application with additional information. So there's no problem applying early. I highly recommend applying early because, as I said, we're going to start looking at the applications right away. We don't wait until they close to start reviewing. So that's the initial process. In March through May, we'll have our online and in-person pitch events, our road tour, which I'll tell you more about. And then at the end of May, we'll select the companies for the program. That means that we'll have had all these companies pitch in person. All of our partner and investors who've been involved in the process and other stakeholders will be giving us feedback all along the way. We'll be just doing some additional diligence, and we'll choose the companies by the end of May. In the beginning of June, our program will kick off. It'll run through August, and actually June, August, September, because it'll run through the end of September. That'll be our virtual acceleration program, but we'll also have our corporate mentoring and some of the other things that'll be involved. I'm going to tell you about the program shortly. We wrap up the program in September at the Asia Pacific MedTech Forum. That's a forum for industry leaders run by APAC Med, who again, I'll tell you about in a little bit, but this is where the program will wrap up. So let's talk a little bit about the resources that we're going to be providing to the companies in the program. Number one, you should know that the program is completely startup friendly. And what I mean by that is there's no equity, no participation fees required of any kind. The only thing you might have to pay is some travel if you're going to be going to one of our in-person events. But that's it. Oftentimes, we don't even have to do that. There'll be local events as well. You don't have to relocate and move in with us anywhere. Our MedTech Innovator Asia Pacific program is headquartered out of Singapore. If you're local, come visit our team. We'll come visit you, but there's no need to relocate. You don't have to move anywhere. You can be in Tokyo, Korea, Australia. It doesn't matter to us, wherever you are and anywhere else in Asia Pacific. In fact, you can be in Europe. You can be in the US, as long as Asia is your primary market, but you don't have to relocate. The program itself is completely customized to you, meaning that we tailor it to whatever you need. And I say you, meaning literally you. Each of the companies, we sit down and we work out what your needs are, and we will tailor your program to you. Even though you're part of a cohort and an overall curriculum, it'll be tailored to your needs. And we have the capabilities of supporting companies anywhere from pre-seed all the way to Series C in terms of stage. Once you're beyond that, it's probably too late to join the accelerator for the first place. We'll continue to support you, but in terms of an initial entry into the program, we're looking for seed through Series C companies. And the resources, what are they? Number one, mentorship. That's why it's the top of the list. Mentorship is really the core of the program. You'll have a corporate mentor assigned from one of our strategic partners, and you'll have other mentors assigned as well, who are also from other parts of the industry. It could be people on the regulatory side, development, whatever it is that you need, we'll try and assign someone to you who can help you with your evolution. Market access is a huge problem for startups in Asia Pacific as you try to enter other regions or even your local region. We're going to make sure you get market access help in your program. We have a customized curriculum, which customized meaning that we're going to survey all the companies that we accept, find out what you're looking to achieve, and then we'll choose the curriculum based around common themes that everyone is interested in. And of course, there'll be some that are the same every year, things like investment and fundraising, things like market access, but there'll be some other things that might be customized each year to the needs of that particular cohort. There'll also be a huge amount of visibility, which I'm going to show you a little more of in a moment, but people are going to know about you if you're one of our companies. We also offer non-dilutive prizes, as I mentioned before. There's no equity that we're taking for that. Those are completely non-dilutive. And we provide incubator space through our partnership with JLabs. So one of the companies in the cohort every year wins a residency at JLab Shanghai. If you don't need that, that's fine, but that's an opportunity as well. There'll also be some other in-kind awards. We've given out awards from a number of our partners over the years, and those are involving various types of services that will be hugely valuable to you, and you won't have to pay for. So, those are opportunities as well. Lastly, and equally important, I would say, is the peer network. So we're looking to make sure that you have access to not only all these other resources, but to peers who are on the same journey with you. Maybe they're a little earlier than you, maybe they're later than you, but we want to find people who are on the same type of a journey who can help you. We have 420 companies already as alumni who are at all stages, who are the leading performers in our industry. As I said, they've raised $3.5 billion. They've got 90 products in the market. They can all help you. So that's what you're going to be getting in terms of resources. All right, I'm seeing a number of companies asking questions, which I will get to shortly. So I mentioned before the road tour, the pitch events. So these are some photos from a couple of years ago when we had our last in-person road tour. Because of COVID, we had to put that on hold these last 2 years, but we'll have events potentially in local cities in different regions. So for example, we had a pitch event in Tokyo, one in Shanghai, one in Sydney, one in Singapore. You see some of those here on the slide. We may also add on other regions, potentially Korea, India, and others as well. COVID will really dictate this for us. So we're going to be looking to see where we can. We'll have in-person pitch events regionally, and otherwise we'll do them online, which we are very good at. You can apply for multiple programs. So that's one of the questions I've seen, and I'll tell you a little more about that shortly. All right, so lastly, as we're kind of wrapping up here in this part of the presentation, some of the things that I mentioned before. So again, funding, you'll have access to funding, non-dilutive funding from us, and funding on the outside from investors. We'll be making introductions and exposing you through showcases to investors in many ways. You'll have visibility. You see here the audience at the Asia Pacific MedTech Forum, where our finals were held, and will be held this year in Singapore in 2022, assuming everything goes well with COVID. And also, of course, our program is online, and the mentorship and those things in many cases will be online. Let me get to a couple more things here, and then I'll answer some questions. So evaluation. I think that's something that a lot of people want to know about, right? How do we decide which companies make it into the program? Firstly, let me direct you to the bottom of the slide over there. The first thing I want to point out is the sweet spot in terms of what we're looking for is a company that has a prototype of some kind or later. So you could have a product on the market, anywhere from prototype to product on the market. We're not looking for people with ideas. You've got to have some kind of a prototype or later, number one. Number two, we're looking for evidence. It could be bench evidence. It could be preclinical evidence. It could be clinical evidence that what you're doing is going to work. Some kind of early proof of concept all the way to customer data to show us that what you're doing is working. Number three, we want to have a full-time team. We can't have a company where everyone is, at a university, and if things work out, you'll all leave and start the company. We really need you to be at a company. Now, you can be spinning out the company and committing to be a full-time team. That's okay. But we don't want to have someone who says, hey, if we raise some money, we'll start a company. That's too early for us. So we really need somebody who actually has team members who can execute. And then number four, we want to make sure you have runway. And what I mean by that is that you have the ability to execute on your milestones through at least the end of our program, and which is in October, meaning that we don't want to have someone who says, hey, if we raise money, then we'll be able to participate. Or if we raise money, we'll be able to do some of the things that we've talked about. We need people who actually have some resources to execute already. It doesn't mean you have to have raised a lot of money. You could be working for free as long as you're willing to do so through our program. We don't want to have you disappear midway. So if we're going to give you all this time and guidance, we need you to be around. Lastly, we're looking for companies, as I mentioned, the sweet spot pre-seed through Series C. Above that, you'll see some of the buckets that we evaluate companies in. I've bolded a couple things here that I'm going to point out again. On the value side, your value proposition is very important. And by that, I mean, what value do you offer in terms of improving outcomes, lowering costs, caregiver safety, convenience, all sorts of things, providing benefits that patients are gonna improve their satisfaction, whatever it might be. We want to make sure that you offer a compelling value proposition. We're going to help you with your value proposition during the program, but we want you to offer a compelling value proposition, at least in the eyes of our evaluators. Business model, I've bolded. You got to have a reasonable business model. You have to have some idea of what that is. If you come in and go, we don't know what our business model is, you're probably too early for MedTech Innovator. So we need you at least to have a preliminary idea of what your business model is. Going to the middle bucket in terms of execution, some of the things I've bolded here, team strength. So again, you don't have to have the perfect team, but we want to make sure you have a team that can execute on the milestones that are in front of you at the moment. And that means that what the things that we're going to work on with you during the program, we need to have a team there who understands what we're talking about and is able to work with us. So that's important. Again, it doesn't have to be the long-term team, just the right team for the right time. Evidence, I mentioned that down before. It's important that you understand your evidence plan, your plan to generate evidence during the time that not only you're in the program, and beyond. We want to make sure that you understand this is the kind of evidence we're going to need to be successful. We'll help you with that, but again, we're going to evaluate you based on what we believe the evidence needs are. Momentum, some of the key things there I've bolded: time to key milestones, and overall validation. Time to key milestones, meaning if you say, hey, in 8 years, we're going to get to our next milestone, that's probably a little long for us in MedTech Innovator. You don't have to complete all your milestones during the program by any means, but we want things where we believe we can have an impact on things that are coming up relatively soon, relatively speaking. And then lastly, validation. We want to see that there's some validation, whether it's other key opinion leaders who like what you're doing, customers who like what you're doing, whatever it might be, patients, who knows, but something that shows us, again, you don't have to have a ton of this. It can just be survey data in some cases, but something that shows that you're not the only person who thinks this is important. So again, that's generally how we like to evaluate companies. We'll tell you more about that as we go. I'll give you just a little bit of an idea of the types of companies. We accept companies in every area. We accept companies in every type of clinical specialty. We accept companies in every kind of technology, with the exception of biopharma. So there was a question in the chat over here that says, what about companies in the preventative health space? We're working on a solution to help people with mental balance with that fit. So we are very much interested in mental health. We are very much interested in preventative care. That is a big part of what we're looking for. So yes, you should apply to the program. The companies that you see here made it to the finals last year in MedTech Innovator. Biorhythm, some of you may know, based in Singapore. That company is developing a solution to help during pregnancy to monitor and make sure that these babies are delivered healthy baby, healthy mom. Opharmic Technology, based in Hong Kong. Sarah actually presented and won along with Langston, her co-founder, but she presented in the finals and won the entire competition last year. And Opharmic is developing a drug delivery technology to help deliver drugs to the eye non-invasively. Just take an eye drop and an ultrasound device, and drugs that typically have to be injected can now be delivered into the eye. Miracles, based in India, Sabir, did a great presentation on a technology for stopping bleeding. And then Kung Min from VPIX gave a great presentation on their technology based in Korea for helping to eliminate cancer recurrence after surgery. So they've got a great imaging technology. So again, we're looking for things in all sorts of areas. We're looking for implants. We're looking for diagnostics. We're looking for orthopedics. We're looking for cardiovascular. You name it, we're looking for. But I will show you a specific list of things that we're looking for in a moment as well. So that's the main overview of the program and how this process is going to flow. As I mentioned, applications close January 31st, 2022. You can go to medtechinnovator.asia for more information about or to actually apply. So that's the beginning part of this. Let me answer a couple questions, and then I'm going to get over to our application and show you how that works. There's a question that says, are multiple applications accepted, as in one company with different products? And the answer is yes. If you have multiple products, you actually want to fill in multiple applications. So you'll complete an application, and then you can go in, and there's a little button that says add an additional application. You click that and you fill it in again. Most of it may be very similar if your overall information about your company is the same, but then you could specify the other product, because we are focusing on a particular product during the program with you. So we want to make sure that we understand each product. So if you have multiple products, do multiple applications. Additionally, there's a question, can we apply for both MedTech Innovator US and Asia Pacific? So yes, the answer is absolutely. If you think you want to enter both the Asia market and the US market, and they're both very important to you, apply to both programs. We'll only pick you for one, but you're welcome to apply to both programs. All right, so those are the questions that were open. I'm going to go into the application now. If there's any additional questions you have, please keep firing away and I will get to them. All right, so I'm going to take you to our website. So if you go to medtechinnovator.asia, it will bring you here. This is the apply and information page for MedTech Innovator Asia Pacific. Before I get into some of the details, I want to point out in the nav bar at the top of the screen, there's two areas I want you to look at. One is under the About menu. There's something that says MedTech Industry Strategic Interest Areas for 2022. If you click that, it will take you to a page that lists some of the areas that our partners have specifically said they're interested in. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to be on this list. It doesn't mean that this is the only things we're going to accept. That is not the case. It's just that these are some things that our partners have specifically called out. And they've said, hey, we're looking for technologies that provide non-drug pain management, or technologies that empower patients for improved self-care, or over here where it says interventional tools, we're looking for radiology and pulmonology and neurovascular. Again, they're just some of our partners who said, we're looking for these things. We're looking for digital surgery. We're looking for cryoablation and so on. So again, look through this page. You'll find all sorts of things that our partners are looking for. Again, it doesn't mean that you have to be on this list. It just means if you're on this list, you really, really should apply. And if you're not on the list, please apply anyways, because we always have companies during the program that aren't on this list. All right, now going back to this page over here, the page basically has a lot of information that we've been talking about. It's got the overall schedule. It's got information on the program in general that explains the program and the benefits. It'll have this video on this page as well. So the video that you're watching right now will be embedded on this page. There's a video from last year's finals. You can watch that and you can see again how the kinds of companies that I mentioned before, and you can see the kinds of questions that the judges ask and how all that works. Again, that's the finals. That's just part of the program, but it's still worth watching. You don't have to do that before you apply, but it might be interesting. So that's in the information. There'll be a little more about the eligibility. And then finally, there's a thing that says you're already registered. Now that's because I'm already logged in with an account. If you had not registered, it would say, click here to register. And then you would be taken to a registration page where you enter your email address. I think you enter it really twice. At the top is the username, also as your email address. You hit the button, or I think it's your email address and your password. That's right. It'll send you a message where you can click a link to finish setting up your account after that. But again, if you're already registered as I am, it'll just say you can submit an application. I'm going to show you how that works. So once you've actually logged in, you've registered, it'll take you to a page that you complete for your profile. That's the first thing, your user profile. I'll show you those in a moment. And then it'll ask you for information about your company, and then it'll take you to this page. I'm starting here for a moment because I just want to show you how that process works. So the third page, first page being about you, the individual, second page about your company, third page is this one, which is your application. If you were to quit and come back later, there's a place on your member homepage where you can get to this page as well. Before I do that, someone's asking a good question, which is, can I apply as an employee of the company, or should I apply on behalf of the founder? The answer is yes, you can apply as an employee of the company. And there's a place you'll see in a moment where it asks for the name and the contact information of the CEO, which we have to have. So make sure that you do that, that you're not just filling in your information, but you also enter the information for the CEO. There's also a place where you can add other users to the application who can also edit it as well. So good question. All right, so let me start off here really quickly and say the first thing it's going to ask is for information. So it's saying, welcome. The following pages are going to help us get to know your product, your value proposition, team, etc. A very important thing is that the system saves as you go. So the first thing I'm going to do is enter a product name. So let's say I'm going to say, this is my, I'm going to say like a wearable, the name of my product is wearable device. That's a terrible name for a product, but that's the name of the product I'm entering. And also now I'm saying this is for the Asia Pacific program. You click the terms and conditions, that will open up a window that tells you about the program. So you want to click on the link here that says MedTech Innovator Asia Pacific. It'll take you down to our Asia Pacific terms and conditions, which you'll want to read and understand. Again, there's no equity or application fees required. It tells you about the intellectual property that's yours, but you want to make sure that you don't submit anything that says confidential, because we cannot look at that. Explains the process and timeline, key milestones, and so on. So that's our terms and conditions. Once you've read those, you can say, I agree, and save. And that will create the beginning of your application, and it'll take you into the application. Now, before I fill this out at all, I'm also going to let you know that if you go back to the member home, so if I were to log out and come back in every time, it's going to take you to the member home page. The member homepage starts off with information about you at the top. So this is Paul Grander, which is not my name, but it's close. And your title and your phone number, where you're based, and that I'm the primary contact. If I wanted to, I could edit my information. Now, I mentioned to you the very first thing when you register, after you confirm your email that it'll send you, it'll bring you to this page. And this is where you fill in your name, your information, your title. So again, if the question that was asked earlier, that if you are, let's say you're a CTO or a marketing person or business development, whatever your title is, you're the one filling in the application. You enter your information here. So this would be you and your company name and your phone number and all that. If you have a LinkedIn profile, you can give us that, or Twitter, that's fine. And then over here, we ask where you're based. So you can tell us what country you're in. You maybe you're in, wherever it might be. You're in India, wherever you're based. And then after you've chosen your information, your country, and so on, you tell us what city you're in, if that makes sense for you, and your other localities. You enter your bio. In this case, I just wrote, I'm the CEO, but you can say whatever you want. I'm the CEO with 35 years of experience, whatever else you want to tell us. You enter all your information. Over here, you can leave all these things blank where it says request to be an innovator. You don't have to do anything. You don't even have to enter the short bio. You can leave that blank as well. After you submit that, that will take you to, you can go now back to your member home. So I've saved it. If you were registering for the first time, it would immediately take you to the next page, which is the company information page. That looks a little bit like the page you just filled in. So don't be fooled that you're thinking that I'm entering the same information again. This is different. This is about the company. So what's the name of the company? What year were you founded? How many people do you have on staff full-time, part-time? We also want to know your website URL if you have one, or your other Twitter information, or your Crunchbase URL or AngelList if you have those things. If you don't worry about it. And then this is where I mentioned before, we want to know about your CEO. So give us the name of the CEO. If there's no CEO, you can give us the equivalent. So maybe it's, we don't have a CEO, but we have a chief business officer, whatever it is. Just put that in, put their email address and their phone number. Make sure to let the founder, make sure, the CEO or whomever it is that has that main position, let them know that you're doing this. So that, they're not surprised and go, wait, what is this? Why are we doing this? If you're applying to MedTech Innovator, you should let them know. There's a place where you can also add them to the application, and I'll show that in a minute. But for the minimal part, we just ask for their contact information here. Again, we ask for the company headquarter location, which may be different than your location. Perhaps you're based in Singapore, but the company is headquartered in Shanghai. That's fine. Just give us that information about the company's location. So again, I'm resubmitting this. Going to go back to my member home. So that information maybe has been updated. Now that's the basic information about the you as the user and the company. Now, as I mentioned, you can save your application and come back at any time. I'm going to show you that in a moment. You'll see this little banner at the top that just kind of gives the overview of where we are in the process. So right now it's saying deadlines January 31st. Then the pitch event road tour, selections, accelerator, and so on. So just make sure you kind of look at this, because we're going to be putting updates at the top of the page. Now, because I started that application already for a wearable device, it saved it. It's over here. It's letting me know that the current status is incomplete, and it's telling me all the things that are missing. It's saying I've done my innovator profile, I've done my company information, but the other section is incomplete. So it's asking for that additional information, which we're going to go look at now. It's also telling us we don't have any file attachments. So let's go into the application. And again, as I'm going through this, please ask questions. So the first thing, again, I'm going to notice, or I'm going to note for you, is that across the top, there are these buttons. You can go back to the member homepage. You can go on to section 2, you can attach files, and you can go to the review and submit page from these buttons up here. Over here, this is the form. So the first thing is it says, what's the name of your product service? And I said it's wearable device. But let's say, oh, I should have added a space. I'll add the space. And when I click away, you should see this little box up here in the corner that says saved. It literally is saving your application every time you go from field to field. So when you come over here and you click in the product elevator pitch box, it saved the change I just made a second ago. Elevator pitch, we just want a very short description of what your product is. So you see the summary, the example over here, it says a wearable remote monitoring alert garment for congestive heart failure disease management. That would be a nice short description of what a product is. We like, this has to be under 100 characters, so keep it short, keep it simple. Again, I'll say a wearable alert garment for diabetes. I don't know. And again, as I go to the next field, it's going to save that. It's asking me for my product summary. That's required. So it's saying 1 to 2 paragraphs, summarize the product or service. You could probably just copy and paste that from somewhere else. Like your executive summary, if you have one, but just give us a short summary of the product or service. Then where it says product development stage, we want to know how far is your product, achieved, or have you reached in your development. So concept, as I said, we're not looking for concepts. If you click this button over here, you're probably not going to be eligible for MedTech Innovator. So really, we're putting it there just to let you, have that choice. But if you check that box, there's almost no chance you're making it in. We really want to see that you've got a prototype, at least, that's been developed, and it's either preclinical or clinical, or that your product has been is before approval, or perhaps it's market ready, meaning that it doesn't even need approval, perhaps, or maybe you have paying customers. And then you see this thing down here, it says clear selection. That literally just clears these choices above. So tell us where you are. In this case, I'll say product is clinical. If you have a video URL that you can show us that shows the product, fantastic. Paste it over here. If there's a password required, like on a Vimeo, you'll see it shows in the example some brackets. You can put the brackets with the password, and then we'll know that we need that to access your video. But we do like videos. If you've got one, please supply it. Categorization. So this is really important, because the way our process works is that we match applications with the right reviewer. We match them with the strategics that I mentioned earlier, who might be your partner. They're the ones who are going to decide if you should be invited to pitch. So what we do is we look through the categorizations, and we use that to match against what our partners have checked off. They do the same thing. They check these same boxes. So overall categories, these can be multiple selections. You can say we're a device and a digital technology, or maybe we're a device, digital, and diagnostic, or no, we're just device and digital. So you check the boxes that are appropriate. Tell us about the patient journey, meaning everything from wellness and prevention to detection and diagnosis of disease, to deciding if we should treat the disease, to treating the disease, to monitoring after the post-acute monitoring and chronic care. Anywhere in that patient journey, any of those places that you touch, you might say, well, we're involved with detection and diagnosis and treatment decision. And if that's it, that's fine. If you're also involved with post-acute monitoring, check that too. We want to know what parts of the patient journey you're involved with. We want to know which categories you're involved with in general. This is an optional section over here, but we like to know if you're involved in care coordination, for example, or chronic disease management. These are some very specific themes for us. Or maybe you have a next generation health surgical technology. Just check the appropriate boxes. Special categories, if you've got a pediatric technology, we'd like to know, because we have some special pediatric opportunities. So you could check that box. Or if your technology is particularly appropriate for the military, let us know about that, and so on. If it's consumer health, let us know. So all these things you see as I'm making these changes are being saved. Lead clinical category and all categories. So you will probably have a product in most cases where you say, oh, it can be used in cardiac and vascular surgery. It can also be used in pulmonology or something else. We want to know what's all the categories that it could be applicable in, and what is your lead initial indication. So you might say, well, it's cardiology and cardiovascular surgery, and it's also emergency medicine. But our lead indication is cardiology. So we want to know where it's applicable in general, and specifically which category is your lead indication. I'm going to pause here for a second and answer a question. So Veronica asked, we're using a diagnostic tool from the US. Can we submit our application for this tool? Absolutely. As long as that diagnostic, as long as this is an application that you're actually going to be working with, and the program means you have control over it, then yeah, you can certainly submit that. If it's somebody else's tool that has nothing to do with your company, you probably shouldn't submit it. We just want to know what you're working on in particular. There's another question here that we're working with a researcher who patented their technology. We're only the front line to promote their research device. Can we participate? Okay, so maybe that's helpful, because it's the same person asking the question over here. So what we're looking for isn't to bring on the distributor of the technology to be the one to go through this program. You're going to want to bring them on, and you can work on the program with them during the program, but they're going to want to be part of it as well. We want to make sure that it's the person who's going to have an impact on the technology. If you're only a distributor, or if you're only if you're only involved in a tangential way, it's probably not the right fit. So, so that hopefully will be helpful. All right, let me keep going here. So we've covered the clinical areas. Next, we're going to get into some of the other categories. So if it's a device company, we want you to fill in this column over here. If it's not a device company, you don't have to. But if you're a device company, it says which category best defines your device if it's a device. So you could say, oh, well, it's an implantable. And then it says all categories, just like that clinical one, we want both. We want to know which is your kind of defining characteristic. And then down here, what are the other ones? You might say, well, we're an implantable, but we're also involved with robotics in some way, let's say, or a surgical tool. So tell us all the categories. And we add them together so you don't have to repeat it down here if you've already selected it. Same thing for diagnostics. If you're a diagnostic technology, which again, if you're not, you don't have to fill this column in. You would tell us we're point of care or wherever you are, as well as the other ones. You might say we're point of care and we're rapid. Primary digital category, if you are digital in any way, which 70% of the applicants last year were, meaning that you have a sensor technology or telemedicine or VR or your wearable or whatever. Tell us what's your primary digital component. Like if you identify as something, we are an AI company or we are a blockchain company, tell us what you are. We're a blockchain company, but we're also involving AI and cloud computing and sensors. So tell us anything that you think you apply to, as well as the main one that you fit into. Then we'll ask some questions down here about completed milestones. So this is what you've already accomplished. So the first thing we want to know is what series of fundings have you completed to date? So you might say, and you check all the ones. So you say, oh, we've already done our pre-seed and our seed, for example. Yes, Veronica, if you're just the distributor, it wouldn't be advisable for you to participate, but we appreciate it. Then we ask the fundings that have been completed to date, what was the most recent one that you've done? So the most recent equity funding that you've done, you might say, we just closed a round of $1 million. You type 1, and again, US dollars, please. So convert it. We appreciate that. So 1 million would be a 1. If you've raised 500,000, we'd ask you to put in 0.5 for that. Or if you've raised 300,000, 0.3. If you've raised 2.5 million, 2.5. That's what we're looking for here. And we ask, what round was that? So you've completed a pre-seed and a seed so far, but the most recent one was our seed. We also want to know when it was closed. So specifically in this date format. So let's say you just closed a financing in October 10th. So let us know when you've closed your most recent round. If you haven't closed a round, you can clear this out, and you haven't cleared one. If you haven't closed any financings, you can hit 0. We want you to enter 0 if none. I'll clear the selection over here and I'll delete this because we haven't closed any financing. That's fine. Just enter whatever it is, 0 for none, or give us a value if you have. Then we want to know your total funding to date. So let's say, your most recent round was 1 million, but in total you've raised 4. So put that in over here. We also want to know about diluted, non-dilutive funding. Again, if it's a 0, give us a 0. Same thing over here, 0, 0. We've raised nothing. But if you have raised funding, tell us how much. Non-dilutive funding, we've raised $1 million in non-dilutive funding. And then the most important question in many cases is, how long does this money last? So when do you run out of cash? And you tell us in the quarter and the year. So you could say, oh, we run out of cash in Q4 2022, let's say. That's when we run out of money. We want to know, how long does your capital last? Then scrolling over here, we want to know what types of people have invested already. Could be angels, could be friends and family, could be the founders. Who are some of the sources of funding? So it's very important to us to have some validation. Now, again, you don't have to have any of these things, but these are things we look at. And you use an asterisk to tell us each line. So you might say, we've raised funding from NUS, and we've raised funding from Enterprise Singapore. And that's who's funded us so far, as examples. We want to know what milestones, some key milestones you've accomplished. We'd like 3 or more. If you've only done 1, that's fine too. So you might say, so for example, over here, you see the example of completed 20 patient efficacy study in Q3 2017. That would be great. And again, use that little bracket format to tell us. Milestones achievable with remaining resources. We want to know, okay, with the money you have left. So these are the things you've already done. We've done, preclinical study, which we completed in Q2 of 2021. And then down here, this is with the money we have left, we can still do our 10 patient first in human, let's say. I'm just giving you an example. And again, give us the quarter Q for 2021. So we're almost done. All right, so that's what we can do with the money we have left over. Now, for your next funding, that's really important to us. What are you doing after this? In our next round, we're going to be seeking $3 million. That'll be our Series A. We expect to close that in, let's say, 2022. And the milestones with the new funding. So the next round of funding, what can you achieve? With that, we're going to submit to, let's say, so we're going to go on the market. We're going to, begin customer, marketing or whatever you're going to do, sales. Just tell us the things, the major milestones that you can achieve, randomized control trial, whatever you're going to do. In 50 subjects. Just tell us what your major milestones will be for the next round of funding. And then lastly, in these little sections over here, has your company received any funding from the NIH? That's in the US. You may not have, no. How did you hear about MedTech Innovator? I heard about it from, I don't know, Paul's webinar. Whatever, if you're watching us today, or maybe you heard about us from your investor, tell us who that is. Have you applied previously? If you applied last year, that's fine. Yes. And the update since last time is we've hired a CEO, and just tell us what's been different. If you haven't previously applied, you can just hit no or nothing, and or actually you have to hit something. So you would say no. All right. So that's the section 1. I'm going to answer a couple questions here. One question is, we are developing a liquid biopsy test for early cancer detection. We've developed a prototype and validated on 50 patient samples. Is this considered preclinical or a clinical prototype developed? That would be a clinical prototype. So you can select that. And again, can we submit on behalf of the research company? So again, yes, as long as you have their permission to do so, and as long as they're going to participate as well. So again, Veronica, you're welcome to email me afterwards and we can talk in more detail about that. All right, so let's go to the next page of the application. We're almost done here. Section 2 for our wearable device is we want to know about your value proposition. So what's your unique value proposition, how it's going to benefit your key stakeholders. So you might say, for patients, we cure their cancer. For clinicians, we improve workflow, and so on. Whatever your key value props are. For payers, we lower cost. I don't know, whatever it is. Business model, just tell us what it is. It's a SaaS model that's $50 per patient, PPM, or whatever it is. Whatever your model is, just tell us briefly whatever it is. It's going to be single, disposable, and whatever. Just tell us what it is. Market opportunity. Now we're getting to the market. So what's the need of the problem that you're solving? We're solving breast cancer, whatever it is, breast cancer recurrence, or you could fill something in up to 700 characters about the problem you're addressing. Your market size. What's the overall market size? It's a $1 billion market. Again, I'm abbreviating here. You should write something longer than this. Your market access plan. So this is where we want to know what your primary markets are for the product. We're going to launch in Malaysia, and then we're going to go we're gonna launch in Singapore, and then we're going to, in 2023, and then we're going to launch in India in 2024, and so on. We want to know then what your competitive advantage are. So who are your 3 top competitors in the space? So again, just list them out. 1 is Co1, 2 is Co2. Just tell us who your competitors are. Your market advantage. Are you the first to market? Are you early to market? Fast follower? Intellectual property. Have you filed at all, both in the US or anywhere else? Freedom to operate. Tell us, have you done a freedom to operate search? We've done our own. We've used outside counsel. Tell us about your team. This is where we went about the founding team. CEO is Paul Grand, who blah, blah, blah. And again, tell us about all your team members, copy and paste it from something else. Formation, this is unique. You probably can't copy and paste this from somewhere else. Tell us the inspiration for the company. Our founder was a clinician who saw this problem, whatever it is, and needed a solution. So whatever, how did they come together? Met the co-founder at a conference. I don't know, whatever it is. But we want to know how the team came together. This section over here, we want to know a little bit about diversity, equity, inclusion. This is more appropriate to the US than it is, I know, in Asia. But we want to know diversity-wise, is there a female in your founding team or who's leading the team? And we also want to know if you're thinking at all about trying to improve health equity. Again, this is a little more appropriate to our US program, but you can read the descriptions over here about whether or not you're thinking about increasing diversity in your company, like improving the mix of females in the leadership and so on. Final stuff over here, regulatory. So you want to know if you have US regulatory path, what would it be? What's your Asia regulatory path? So, have you prepared a submission? Have you filed? Are you registered? And so on. Again, which markets are you currently preparing submissions in? You can tell us down here. We're doing it in Hong Kong and Singapore. And we asked the same thing about Europe, CE mark. So again, we just want you to tell us whatever you can about, these are optional. Other validations, have you been in any other accelerators or incubators? Yes, we were in J Labs. Competitions, if you've been in other competitions, you might tell us, oh, we were in MedTech Innovator and we won in 2020, whatever it is. If you have any partnerships, tell us about it. Oh, we have a partnership with NUS or whomever it might be. Traction in sales. Are you generating any revenue? Yes, we are. No, we're not. If you are, how much are you generating how much do we generate in 2022? So we expect to generate $4 million in 2022 with a SaaS-based revenue model. And who are your customers? Oh, our customers are employers, or it's hospitals, or it's patients, because they're doing it directly, whatever it is. And then last page over here are the files. So in files, we need at least one file attached. Usually it's the pitch deck. It has to be non-confidential. If the file says confidential, we will not look at it. We will send you a message back and say, you've only uploaded confidential materials, please resubmit. So go through your deck, take out any slides that are non-confidential, and delete the little watermark that says confidential on every page, because even if you say, oh, it's not confidential, even though it says confidential, we're not going to look at it. It can't say confidential. But you drag the file in over here, or you just click select and choose the file. And then lastly, you go to review and submit. It will give you that little summary, kind of we saw before. This one's saying, oh, we forgot to fill in the summary, and we didn't fill in the IP status. So please go back and fill those in, which you can do. And then it's saying you also didn't upload an file. You can review down here to see all the things that have been entered that you saw me entering already. So here's the review. You can see it's all there, all the categories, all that stuff. So you can review your application. And then when it's done, all of this stuff will go away and there'll be a button that says submit. Now, just to let you know, This is a living document. You can come back and edit it at any time. You can come back in a week, in a month, and say, oh, we're going to change this because we've changed our business model, or we've changed our status, or we've raised more money, or whatever it is. Come back in and edit that. Even after you've hit the submit button, you can come back, change it, and it's still considered submitted. That just tells us that we're able to start reviewing it. If you make an update, our reviewers will see the latest version. So that's how all that works. You can come back at any time, as I mentioned before. So that's the application. I know we just covered a lot. Let me cover these last couple of questions because we're over time. One question says, what if we're in the preclinical stage during the application, later finish the clinical trial, and the application is closed? Can we update? Absolutely. At any time, you can come in, even after January 31st, you can come back and make a change to your application, and we will see it. We've designed this to be a living system. We want you to be updating it with information as you have updates. Will the first screening be done via the fields filled out in the various sections, and they look at each application's pitch deck and supporting files? So they will look at usually the pitch deck first. And again, that's just like the way people tend to work. They kind of scroll through the application and click the pitch deck, and then they close it, and then they look at everything else. Some people do read the initial fields. It's up to the reviewer. They have it all on one gigantic screen. So they're able to look at everything at the same time. As I said, usually people look at the pitch deck first. Another person asked, for the US program, does the first market have to be the US? I'm looking at both the US and the UK. I have a clinical part in the UK running clinical studies there. It might be the case that UK could be the first market. That's fine. We just want to know that US is a primary focus for you. Meaning like you're not planning on entering the US market, like you're not starting to think about the US market in 5 years. It's okay if it's going to take you 5 years to get to market, but I just mean that you're concerned with the US market now. You want to understand it. You're ready to make some progress towards it. Apply to the US program. If you're looking at Asia, as I said, and you're on the path to Asia, apply to the Asia program. All right, those were the only questions that I had left in the Q&A box. As I said, we're over time here, so I want to be respectful of your time. You can reach out to us at medtechinnovator.asia, and you'll find us a contact form. You can email us at apacsupport@medtechinnovator.org, and that will get to us, and we will get back to you and answer your questions. You can also email hello@medtechinnovator.org. That will get to us as well. So if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We'll help you in the process. We want to make sure you do a good application, that you represent yourself well. So that's really it. I hope to see your application. I hope to see you on our road tour, whether it's virtual or in person. I hope to see you on our road tour. MedTech Innovator is a terrific program for companies to really get to know other companies in the space, to get to know the strategics, investors, customers, patients in some cases. So you're going to get a lot of exposure, a lot of access. It really is a unique program. In my opinion, there's nothing like it out there. So I hope you apply. I'm going to be on the other end of those applications too. I'll be reviewing them along with everybody else. And I'm looking forward to seeing your application and hopefully meeting you in person. So that's it. Thanks for joining us in our information session. And as I said, hope to see you soon. Thanks for being here.